Tonight, the president seeks stronger people-to-people relations between Nigeria and South Africa as he holds bilateral talks with President Ramaphosa in Abuja. House of Representatives moves to recover over 2.6 trillion naira debt allegedly owed federal government by oil and gas companies. Workers express divergent views as federal government begins enforcement of no vaccination, no entry as the nation records first cases of Omicron variant. And European Commission President urges EU member states to consider making COVID-19 vaccinations compulsory as more Omicron cases are recorded. Plus international news from our studio in London.
On business news tonight, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries retains global growth forecast for 2021 and 2022 at 5.6 and 4.2% despite Omicron COVID-19 fears.
On sports news tonight, Norway's Karsten Warholm and Jamaica's Elaine Thompson-Herah have been named World Athletes of the Year for their incredible seasons at the World Athletics Awards 2021.
And from Abuja, Borno State government orders aid organizations operating in the state to stop giving relief materials to resettled internally displaced persons.
The president is calling for a stronger emphasis on people-to-people relations between South Africa and Nigeria to foster a bond that will mutually benefit both countries as well as Africa. President Muhammadu Buhari made the call when he received South African counterpart, President Cyril Ramaphosa, at the State House today, a visit President Buhari describes as successful in the face of the Omicron COVID-19 scare. President Ramaphosa, on his part, restated his call for a lifting of the travel ban imposed on his country and other sister countries over the Omicron COVID-19 variant. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Mizuke, reports.
President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, arrives the forecourt of the presidential villa and is received by President Muhammadu Buhari. There is a special inspection parade to welcome the visiting president before President Buhari leads his South African counterpart, who is in company of a delegation of ministers, into a 10th session of Nigeria's South Africa Binational Commission in his office. Improving what he terms as a special relationship with South Africa, the president, who also addresses ministers from both countries, is confident that the 32 agreements signed and the two major initiatives launched by both countries, particularly the youth dialogue, will culminate into bigger gains.
We have been able to hold successful meetings while observing strict coronavirus protocols through fraternal cooperation and understanding. Today has witnessed the signing of new memoranda of understanding between Nigeria and South Africa in diverse areas, including youth development, women and child empowerment, and political consultations, critical areas that will lead to increased people-to-people contact.
The visiting president is particularly pleased about the reception amidst extreme travel restrictions imposed on flights from and to South Africa after the discovery of the Omicron COVID-19 variant.
The resulting damage to this travel ban to the economies of the countries affected will be considerable and long-lasting. So I want to use this opportunity to once again call on the countries who have imposed this ban to reverse their decisions, whether they are in the northern, more developed economies or in other parts of our continent and elsewhere.
Now, aside the Youth Dialogue Initiative, for which a steering committee has been inaugurated to fashion out ways in which this can be successfully implemented, the two leaders will also agree on health care cooperation, which is key within the AU Agenda 2063. From the Presidential Villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the president has departed Abuja to attend Expo 2020 Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. The Expo 2020 Dubai is aimed at creating the environment for Nigeria to join over 190 countries to forge true and meaningful partnerships. In a statement, the president's spokesman, Mr. Femi Adesina, explains that the Expo will provide an opportunity for the Nigerian delegation to highlight significant strides in the economy in the last 6 years as a basis for making the country an important destination for foreign direct investment. Aside touring the Nigerian pavilion at the Expo on Friday, Nigeria's National Day, the president will also receive in audience prospective investors as well as meet with His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi and Deputy Supreme Commander of the UAE Armed Forces, and Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President and Prime Minister of the UAE and ruler of the Emirate of Dubai. On Saturday, President Buhari will be the special guest of honor at the Special Trade and Investment Forum. Among top government officials in the president's entourage are the ministers of Foreign Affairs, Industry, Trade and Investment, and Finance, Budget and National Planning. President Buhari is expected back in Abuja on Sunday, December the 5th, 2021. And to the National Assembly, where the House of Representatives is urging the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency, and the Federal Inland Revenue Service to provide necessary data to facilitate the recovery of debts owed the federal government by oil and gas companies. This decision follows a motion by Representative Ahmed Munir informing the House that 77 oil and gas companies operating in Nigeria are owing the federal government over 2.6 trillion naira. The House says it is concerned that such a huge debt is being overlooked at a time when the country needs funding for its annual budget.
The House notes that according to the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, 77 oil and gas companies operating in Nigeria are owing the federal government over 2.6 trillion naira. Also notes that the debts accrued from failure of the firms to remit petroleum profit tax, company income tax, value-added tax, withholding tax, royalties, penalties, and concession on rentals to the federal government. Concerned that such a huge debt is being overlooked at a critical time when the country needs funding for its annual budget. Cognizant that if debts are recovered, the money could be used to service some of the federal government's debt as well as fund up to 16.2% of the 2022 budget deficit. Also cognizant that recovery of these debts is critical in this period of dwindling revenues, especially as the COVID-19 pandemic has grossly affected the country's economy.
Meanwhile, the lawmakers also want the Inspector General of Police to ensure the removal of illegal checkpoints across the country. The resolution of the House is sequel to an urgent motion by Representative Ifeanyi Moma calling for the investigation of loss of lives on the Onitsha-Owerri Expressway. Meanwhile, the House is mandating its Joint Security and Justice Committees to submit its findings on the circumstances surrounding the disappearance and resultant death of Mr. Todu Salem, a journalist with the Vanguard newspaper. Our correspondent Terry Kumi has the details.
Wednesday's plenary session gets underway in the House of Representatives as a motion of urgent public importance related to police and military checkpoints is raised.
Mr. Speaker,
Representative Ifeanyi Moma says over the weekend, 20 people died along the Onitsha-Owerri Expressway, and he blames it on these checkpoints which he believes are wrongly located.
on Sunday, because of the routine check at the checkpoints, a trailer that was laden with lots of goods lost brake and crammed over 24 of people. Bodies were littered all over the street. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I personally traveled home on Monday to go and have a meeting with the youths of the community because they were putting themselves together to go and attack some of these police stations because of some of these inhumane and degrading things that they have encountered there.
Amendments are made to the motion to prevent a repeat of such an incident.
The House should mandate the Inspector General of Police to ensure the removal of illegal checkpoints across the country.
Mr. Speaker, I want to amend that they should remove all those wooden barriers in any checkpoints across the Federation because it's affecting the lifespan of our road.
Meanwhile, in a separate motion, the House is calling for urgent measures to secure schools against kidnappers and bandits.
The Federal Ministry of Education, the State Ministry of Education, the private school owners have not taken steps to provide adequate security in schools across the country to prevent attack.
In the meantime, the Green Chamber is still interested in the report of its committee on the former Vanguard journalist Todway Salem, even though he has been declared deceased.
What we are hearing from the grapevine is that that young man is going to be buried on the 11th of this month. And the committees that have been given 2 weeks are yet to even submit a report. It's not just about whether we found him dead or not, but the findings and what led to it and what else to do. These are things that I think I'm worried about that our committee has failed to do.
The Speaker mandates the relevant committees to ensure that the report is submitted within a week. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
The federal government has begun enforcement of the directive that only persons with vaccination cards or evidence of a negative PCR test done within 72 hours can be allowed access into public offices. The enforcement exercise began as early as 7 a.m. at the Federal Secretariat, Abuja. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
Gates shut, security men on guard. Access to the Federal Secretariat Abuja is being restricted. Many of these civil servants behind me are not able to access their offices because they do not have evidence of a COVID-19 vaccination or a negative PCR COVID-19 test. Only those that fulfill the requirements are allowed access, while those who fail to meet up are restricted.
We are not sending them back to their houses. We are sending back to the various vaccination centers in their own interest and in the interest of others.
This enforcement exercise comes exactly 49 days after the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 announced that only those with COVID-19 vaccination card or evidence of a negative PCR COVID-19 test done within 72 hours will be allowed access into public offices. However, some civil servants have their reservations over the decision.
Is it a must that we must take this? Even in other countries, do they force people to take it? I don't think.
It should be about choice. It should be about willingness to do it and not a force.
I was at the clinic yesterday to take it. The clinic people say that the code on the card has finished, that we should go and come this morning.
For some, there's a need to create more awareness.
Not that people don't like to take it, people want to take it. Let government calm down and educate people more and see the better way of doing it.
Meanwhile, about 300 meters away from the Secretariat, a COVID-19 vaccination exercise is taking place and some civil servants are taking advantage of it.
Some persons complain of having fever and all that after taking the vaccine. I wasn't prepared for all of that. That's why I've not taken it. But now that it's compulsory, I'm submitting myself to take the vaccine now.
After about 2 hours, the enforcement exercise at the phase 2 of the Federal Secretariat appears to have been relaxed and access unrestricted. Many will say it's the first day, so we hope to see what the days ahead look like. Meanwhile, Nigeria has confirmed first cases of Omicron variant, making it more imperative for the government to enforce stricter measures. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
And just like our correspondent referred to, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control is asking Nigerians not to let down their guard following the confirmation of 3 cases of the new COVID-19 variant Omicron in the country. A statement from the NCDC explains that 3 passengers who arrived in the country from South Africa last week tested positive to the new variant after a genomic sequencing of positive cases from the routine test for all inbound travelers was carried out on the passengers. The statement is, however, silent about contact tracing since it took over a week after the arrival of the passengers before the new variant was detected. In part 2, after the break, the Nigeria Solidarity Support Fund launches a special COVID-19 themed photography contest. Plus, the Federal High Court in Abuja dismisses suit seeking to nullify the election of Governor-elect Charles Soludo in the recent Anambra State governorship election. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. The president seeks stronger people-to-people relations between Nigeria and South Africa as he holds bilateral talks with President Ramaphosa in Abuja. House of Representatives moves to recover over 2.6 trillion naira debt allegedly owed federal government by oil and gas companies. Workers express divergent views as federal government begins enforcement of no vaccination, no entry, as the nation reports first cases of Omicron variant. A European Commission president urges EU member states to consider making COVID-19 vaccinations mandatory as more Omicron cases are recorded. The Nigeria Solidarity Support Fund has officially launched a special COVID-19 themed photography contest designed to tell the Nigerian stories through compelling photography. Up to 6 million naira is up for grabs in the inaugural competition, and there's also paid internships among other prizes to be won in the contest.
This virtual meeting, organized by the Nigeria Solidarity Support Fund, NSSF, is to announce modalities for the COVID-19 themed photography contest. Young Nigerian creatives are expected to capture the most captivating stories of how Nigerians have been able to overcome the socio-economic impact of COVID-19, telling the stories with their camera lenses. The organizers say it could also be through their mobile phones.
You will agree with me that COVID-19...
The chairman and other members of the NSSF board set the premise for the launch, giving some background on the initiative.
The campaign titled Visions of Nigeria will provide an opportunity for youth across the country to communicate visually the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the people, organizations, and the country at large, and how Nigerians are coping. The future will not be business as usual. Everyone must be positioned to thrive in the new world.
We want to make sure that the end goal, which is all around uplifting the Nigerian youth, and of course, continuing to point direction of attention on COVID-19 and the need for us to get vaccination, remains uppermost in the minds of the Nigerian public.
NSSF is here to support Nigeria and manage the impact of COVID-19 on Nigeria and the rest of the world. We set ourselves 3 mandates, and one of them is what we're acting on, which is reskilling and retooling Nigerian youth.
The general manager of the fund provides details of processes and rules expected to be followed as the contest opens.
The submission in the competition will be massively shared and across the world, both online and offline. Participation, of course, is free and easy. Participants are to register on the website www.wenigerphotocontest.com and post their entry.
NSSF is a non-for-profit initiative platform for resource mobilization created to complement the government's efforts to mitigate the adverse effects of COVID-19 pandemic on Nigerians.
And to the judiciary, where the Federal High Court Abuja has dismissed the suit seeking to invalidate the election of Governor-elect Charles Soludo and his deputy Onyeka Ibezim in the just concluded Anambra State governorship election. The plaintiffs, Adindu Valentine and Egudike Chukwebuka, alleged that the All Progressives Grand Alliance candidates supplied false information to INEC. Justice Taiwo, who dismissed the suit on grounds that it lacked merit and that it was a waste of the court's time, urged the plaintiffs not to use the court as a tool to stagnate democracy. The court also awarded the sum of 2 million naira to APGA, Professor Soludo and Ibezim, who are the second, third and fourth respondents in the suit. The plaintiffs had claimed that Soludo indicated in the affidavit that he was contesting the Aguata 2 constituency seat when in fact he was contesting the governorship seat. They also told the court that an affidavit Soludo's running mates and deputy governor-elect also submitted to INEC contained false particulars. The plaintiffs, through their lawyer, Kelvin Okoko, argued that having indicated the wrong seat on the form, Soludo violated extant legal provisions and ought to be disqualified. But Justice Taiwo held that the plaintiffs failed to convince the court on how the alleged false information supplied to INEC misled them. And we have more stories from Abuja Studios. Here's Markwe Ogun Yusuf. Hi, Markwe.
Hello, Millicent. It's good to see you as always. It appears time for free lunch is over. That's what the Borno State government appears to be saying as it orders aid organizations operating in the state to stop sharing relief materials to resettled internally displaced persons. Governor Babagana Zulum said keeping IDP camps open is encouraging a never-ending cycle as the population in the camps keeps growing, warning that any NGO or donor partner found wanting will face consequences. The governor made this declaration while presenting the state's 2022 budget of 268 billion naira to the Borno State House of Assembly.
I noticed that we have millionaires that are living in the internally displaced camp. I think distinguished Senator Ali Mohamed Alindume is a witness to me. We found out somebody who is having more than 20 million naira and is residing in an Abakasi IDP camp. So how can we continue with such process? The fact is that from that we have seen keeping an IDP camps open would only perpetuate a cycle that is without end. IDPs deserve to be resettled with dignity. They deserve dignified means of livelihood and to safely raise their children with access to quality and affordable health care, good sanitation and education. In order to discourage establishment of more IDP camps, I have directed SEMA and other security agencies, including the Nigerian military, to ensure that no humanitarian support is being taken to new areas that we have established. Any non-governmental organization or any donor partners who is found wanting, who is distributing food and non-food items in the newly established villages in Borno State shall be dealt accordingly.
In security matters, the federal government has been given details of its decision to declare bandits in the country as terrorists. The Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami, explains that the proscription of bandits is in response to the evolving threats to the nation's security and territorial integrity. The Justice Minister, who was on our Politics Today program, further explained that the treatment of the bandits as terrorists will be guided by judicial fundamentals and international best practices.
As far as insecurity is concerned, and the Nigerian context is concerned, it was a challenge that kept evolving. When it started with Boko Haram, I believe you know very well that we took immediate steps and decision to proscribe them and declare them terrorists, and that order was obtained. And then what followed thereafter in terms of Northwest challenges associated with banditry, kidnapping, and cattle rustling were all the byproduct of the Boko Haram, and they were in one way or the other interconnected. So as you are perhaps taking steps to prescribe an existing security challenge, new security challenges are evolving. And again, when eventually we equally had issues associated with IPOP, we equally took decision to have them prescribed. So these are evolving challenges, and as they evolve in line and in tune with our tradition of facing the challenges and taking actions over them, we have taken steps. So it's not that it has taken so long, but then we kept working and we kept addressing the challenges as they arise, as they manifest, and as they unfold.
When the News at 10 returns, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries retains global growth forecast for 2021 and 2022 at 5.6 and 4.2, despite Omicron COVID-19 fears. That's on Business News. You join us again. Welcome back to the News at 10. The Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board says it has achieved over 75% success in the various programs under its 10-year strategy roadmap expected to grow the Nigerian content level in the oil and gas industry. The Executive Secretary of the agency, Simbi Wabote, stated this at the 10th edition of the Practical Nigerian Content Conference, which took place at the Nigerian Content Towers in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State.
The Practical Nigerian Content Conference is a platform for stakeholders in the oil and gas industry to take stock of their activities, address the challenges they face, and chart a new course for more productivity in the industry. And delegates are here to acquire knowledge on how to drive the Nigerian content in the era of the Petroleum Industry Act. In his address, the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board speaks about the benefits of this meeting.
We believe we are on track towards the 70% Nigerian content target, but we will need the support of all industry stakeholders to make it happen.
Next, the Group Managing Director of the NNPC, Mele Kyari, sheds light on the ongoing energy transition worldwide.
Needless to say that there is a great energy transition that is going on. Yes, we have always advocated that it should be just energy transition, but the fact still remains that our business will be greatly impacted by the ongoing transition journey. But it also creates opportunity for our country and for our industry. Every oil and gas company in the world is transitioning into energy company so that value can be shifted to the new way of doing things and new way of putting the value on the table.
The governor of Bayelsa State, Doye Diri, reaffirms his government's commitment to working with the Nigerian Content Development Board.
We are doing everything within our purview to ensure that there is peace and there is security for you to actually come over to Bayelsa and other states of the Niger Delta where your businesses are located and engage the local businesses more, and consequently take a lot of our unemployed youths off the streets.
The conference also featured exhibitions from major investors in the oil and gas sector, and delegates will also visit the Nigerian Oil and Gas Park in MAR1 in Bayelsa State.
Well, that's all from Abuja. It's back to you now, Millicent.
Thank you, Margaret. And we continue in Lagos. Tragedy. A 12-year-old student of Dowen College, a private school in the Lekki area of Lagos, has reportedly died in rather controversial circumstances. While an account says the student died from injuries sustained after being beaten for refusing to join a cult group in the school, authorities of the co-educational school, however, claim the student sustained injuries while playing football. Channels Television made contact with the Lagos State Commissioner of Police, Hakeem Udumosu, who explained that the school was yet to make a formal report on the death of the student in their school. Mr. Udumosu adds that the divisional police officer in the area has been detailed to carry out preliminary investigation on the death of the student. Meanwhile, the death toll in yesterday's boat mishap on Badua River in Bagwai local government area of Kano State has risen to at least 29. The canoe was carrying Islamia school children and other passengers from Badua village to Bagwai local government, where they were expected to board a vehicle to Tofa local government for Maulud celebration. Governor Abdullahi Ganduje has expressed shock at the incident, while a committee led by the Kano State Naval Commander and other stakeholders have been set up to ascertain the cause of the tragic incident. Meanwhile, the Commissioner for Information, Mohammed Garba, who addressed journalists in the incident, says relief materials, including food items, have been taken to victims and their families. The government has also banned the use of commercial boats in ferrying passengers on Badua River. The administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is planning to use the last years of his tenure to commission capital projects across the country to help uplift both the rural economy and showcase the administration's achievements so far. Well, that's according to the Minister of Special Duties, Senator George Akume. The minister was speaking at the commissioning of the 6.6 billion naira Vandikia Obudu Cattle Ranch Road from Benue to Cross River State.
Residents from over 9 communities benefiting from the 24 kilometers Vandikia Obudu Cattle Ranch Federal Highway gather to witness the commissioning of a project that has changed their lives for good. Awarded in 2012, the first phase of the road was completed in 2014, while the second phase was awarded in January 2015. The completion of the project will linger on the minds of the residents of the area.
I commissioned this wonderful project for the benefit of the people of Benue, Cross River States, and indeed the entire Nigerian people. God bless.
The road is one of the 40 ongoing Sukuk-funded road projects across the country, and the people are hoping that the projects will curb maternal and child mortality in the area.
This is the second of many more project completions and handovers our country will experience in the next few weeks and months as we enter what I call a season of completion and impact.
This road was terrible, and I kept wondering how many women had lost their children in the course of coming from Vandikia to Obanliku and Obudu.
President Muhammadu Buhari, who is represented by the Minister of Special Duties, says the ceremony marks the beginning of more commissioning of projects under the present administration.
As we enter the final lap of the tenure of the Buhari administration, we are also entering a season of completion and delivery of projects. As you can all see, we're handing over today the 24-kilometer road, which is Vandikia Obudu Cattle Ranch Road.
Residents of communities along the road, who are predominantly farmers, can only hope that the project will improve their access to market as the road reduces travel time of averagely 4 hours before construction to 2 hours.
Business News is next. Here's Taniola Shibawale.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Millicent. Welcome to Business News. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries has retained the global economic growth forecast for 2021 and 2022 at 5.6 and 4.2%, despite uncertainties over the Omicron COVID-19 variant. In a statement released today, the oil cartel says while challenges to the economic recovery remain, the world economy continues to improve. According to OPEC, world oil demand growth in 2021 now stands at 5.7 million barrels per day, reflecting a slower than anticipated demand from China and India in the third quarter of 2021, while global oil demand is now estimated to reach 96.4 million barrels per day in 2021. Meanwhile, world total demand in 2022 is estimated to reach 100.6 million barrels per day, and that's about 0.56 million barrels per day above 2019 levels. The Ebonyi State Governor, Dave Umahi, has presented a total budget estimate of 145.4 billion naira for the 2022 financial year. The capital expenditure is pegged at 89.7 billion naira, which is about 61% of the budget, while 55.6 billion naira has been earmarked for recurrent expenditure. Governor Umahi says the budget of latter rain is targeted at creating an enabling environment for economic development.
We have provided 5,000 employment opportunities to our civil servants at the state and local government levels in our 2022 budget, and we have also provided 2,000 youths and women, 200 youths and women per local government area to access the 3 billion NSAS empowerment program from January 2022.
To some company news, South African telecommunications giant MTN Group says the offering of 575 million shares of its Nigerian unit to retail investors on the domestic stock market is not a plan to exit the country. According to MTN Group President and Chief Executive Officer Ralph Mupita, the group still owns 65% in MTN Nigeria, and the offer aligns with the group's priority to create shared value and broaden the shareholder base of MTN to everyday Nigerians. Mr. Mupita further explained that MTN is set to intensify its commitment to Nigeria through engagements with government officials, as MTN Nigeria is important to the growth of the company. The equities market continued negative trading in the new month as the all-share index dipped further by 1.81%. Laddie Williams has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, it's red territory again today on the first trading day in December, this time by almost 2%. Looking at the activity chart, see deals in value is in red, meanwhile volume is the only one in the green today. Over to the gainers counter, we see Cornerstone Insurance top that counter up over 7%, followed by Mansard and Chams. Now to the losers counter, we see MTN Nigeria leading that counter, and the stockbroker I spoke to earlier attributes the drop in MTN Nigeria to traders trying to take position to acquire book build price of the retail offer for the telco stock, which opens today at 169 naira. He also said despite what happened with MTN Nigeria, the fundamentals remain positive for the market. Well, top trades, we see FBN Holdings, Universal Insurance Company, and Zenith Bank leading that counter. Quite a dramatic downturn today. Well, let's see how the remaining trading sessions play out for this week. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Laddie Williams. It's back to you.
Thanks a lot, Laddie. Now let's see how other major global markets fared today. Business News Tonight. I'm Teniola Shubowale. It's back to Millicent for the rest of the news at 10.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Teniola. Still ahead on the news at 10, European Commission President urges EU member states to consider making COVID-19 vaccinations mandatory. We have more international news from our studio in London. Stay with us. The European Commission President says it is time to think about compulsory vaccination amid the fast-spreading Omicron coronavirus variant. Ursula von der Leyen says vaccines would be crucial in the fight against the new variant, and a common approach on vaccinations at the EU level is needed. Simon Pusey has more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. South Africa's president has called travel bans over the Omicron variant of the coronavirus discriminatory.
That are not only unscientific, but counterproductive in the long run.
Speaking alongside other African leaders, President Cyril Ramaphosa said the resulting economic damage of the ban would be considerable and long-lasting. The UK, US and EU are among those countries who have imposed travel bans. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization is launching talks on an international pact to prevent and control future pandemics. However, such an agreement wouldn't be ready until May 2024. The US Supreme Court has heard oral arguments in the most important abortion rights case in decades. Protesters, both for and against abortion, have been gathering for days in the build-up to the case, in which the state of Mississippi wants to ban abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy. Pro-abortion campaigners warn this poses a direct challenge to a constitutional right to terminate a pregnancy. The court, which has a 6-3 Conservative majority, is expected to issue a decision by the summer of next year. Honduras is set to elect its first ever female president, Xiomara Castro. With just over half the votes counted from Sunday's election, Ms. Castro has a preliminary lead of almost 20%. Speaking on local television, her Conservative rival conceded defeat and said he had visited Ms. Castro and her family to congratulate them. Her victory will bring an end to the 12-year reign of the right-wing National Party, which has been plagued by scandal and corruption accusations. Russia says it has started regular winter military drills in its southern military district, parts of which border Ukraine. 10,000 troops have relocated to training grounds across the huge area. Video released by Russia shows some of the exercises taking place. The US, NATO and Ukraine have for weeks now been raising the alarm about a possible new Russian attack on Ukraine, pointing to unusual Russian troop movements near its border. Russia has dismissed those suggestions as fear-mongering. India's capital Delhi has recorded its worst November air quality in years. The city recorded at least 11 days of severe air pollution, up from 10 days in November 2016. Experts blame the lighting of firecrackers during the festival of Diwali and the burning of crop stubble in neighbouring states for the alarming levels of pollution. A funeral has taken place for the 14 people who died when an Azerbaijani military helicopter crashed. Hundreds, including fellow servicemen and families of the victims, attended the ceremony. Footage of smoke rising after the helicopter crashed in the east of the country has been released. Emergency vehicles rushed to the scene, but there were no survivors. A Japanese man has been rescued after spending 22 hours on a capsized boat. In a dramatic rescue video filmed by Japanese Coast Guard, you can see one of his rescuers diving into the sea and swimming towards the boat where the man was clinging onto the rudder. The 69-year-old man had been on the boat alone to work on a port construction project when it overturned. He was only found the next day, around 30 kilometers offshore. The Pope has called for new solidarity with victims of AIDS on World AIDS Day. Speaking at his general audience, he said the day was an important occasion to remember that many people affected by the HIV virus are in parts of the world where they don't have access to essential care. And finally, it's known as the pinnacle in competitive speed cubing. The Rubik's Cube World Cup kicks off this week. The best cubers in the world are warming up their hands and switching their solve brains on to move as close to the finals at the weekend as they possibly can. Over 4,000 participants from more than 50 countries entered the competition, and there are now just 29 people left. The final takes place this Saturday. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Norwegian 400 meters hurdler Karsten Warholm and Jamaican sprinter Elaine Thompson-Herah have been named the World Athletes of the Year earlier today. Warholm received the award for smashing the 29-year-old world record in winning the Tokyo Olympics final in a sensational time of 45.94 seconds. But Thompson-Herah took the women's award for achieving the sprint double at the second consecutive Olympics. Michael Carrick says he has enjoyed the challenge of adapting quickly to being Manchester United's caretaker manager before the arrival of interim coach Ralf Rangnick. Now, the 40-year-old was named caretaker manager after Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was sacked, taking charge of the team for their Champions League victory at Villarreal last week and Sunday's 1-1 league draw at Chelsea. In the English Premier League, Leicester City came from behind to earn a Premier League point against Southampton at St Mary's. Neil Maupay's acrobatic overhead kick earned Brighton a dramatic draw against West Ham at the London Stadium. Wolves were frustrated in their bid to keep pace with the top four as they were held to a goalless draw by Burnley. Algeria beat Sudan 4-0 in the opening round of matches in Group D at the Arab Cup in Qatar. Baghdad Bounedjah bagged a brace to start their campaign on a positive note at the Ahmed bin Ali Stadium. And that's a wrap on Sports News.
Thank you, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The president today advocated stronger people-to-people relations between Nigeria and South Africa. President Buhari said this when he hosted President Cyril Ramaphosa in Abuja today before departing for the Dubai 2020 Expo in the UAE. Also today, workers expressed divergent views as the federal government commenced the enforcement of its no vaccination, no entry policy in the country. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Mwaka. Have a good night. Stay safe.